Happy Tuesday. March is here. That means that the fake good weather of February should give way to warmer days in the full embrace of the spring market. Most importantly, the first Tuesday of every month means we are back once again with another top producer, both at Keller Williams in town and the metro Atlanta area as a whole. With over 10 years in the real estate industry, Adam Mincey is a leader in this office, not just via his numbers, but also for the example he sets through his hard work and dedication. In the post-COVID era, the idea of working in office has changed for a lot of people. But almost every morning I come in, my office next door neighbor is already cranking away on his next transaction. And owning to the thin walls, sorry about my voice, Adam, I get the chance to listen to him help clients navigate the biggest steps of their lives. But don't just take my eavesdropping word for it. Take a minute and look at a sample of the reviews left for him. Testimonial after testimonial, speaking not only to his unique approach to achieving client individual goals, but also making each of his many customers feel like an absolute priority at every step of the process. Most importantly, they all celebrate how he took what can be a harrowing process and managed to make it fun. And that made him a great candidate to help us all learn something today and have a little fun with this month's Shelter Scriptology. So welcome, Adam. How you doing?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate you telling the world that I'm in an office and I'm sitting in my car. And then, I appreciate the self-awareness too, to know that the walls are paper thin and I can hear you every single day. No, I'm just kidding.
No, it's biological. My father and his father, you'd go to football games, you'd hear the crowd, and then you'd hear my dad above the crowd yelling specific instructions at me. I'm like, Dad, you can't do that. The coach is going to coach me.
Oh yeah.
From there. Yeah. We all know when Daniel's in the office, man. It's not
That's right. That's right.
I'm going to take that positively, however it was intended.
Yeah, man. It's amazing.
But Adam, forgive the habitually overwritten intro, but I am excited to talk to you today. Let's start kind of at the end of the introduction. When I hear that someone can make a hard thing fun, that's a kind of review that stands out. What do you say would you owe to that ability to making this whole process fun for so many different types of people?
Being a goofy dude. Naturally, I'm just kind of a goofy person. I also everyone gets uncomfortable in difficult situations, right? So, be yourself, be authentic. My authentic self is to bring a level of lightheartedness to the situation when we're in a difficult time or to set expectations to know that it's going to be that way. So I think that's a lot of it, right? It's just to let people know it's going to suck. And guess what? Every single time you show up for an inspection, you're going to be really stressed. Like you're not even going to be able to sleep tonight and the house is going to fall down tomorrow.
So is it kind of setting those expectations up front, having those conversations so that when you get to the place, it's not nearly as like challenging or out of left field or anything, right?
Yeah, I think so. You have boundaries with that, right? You don't want to tell people and scare them so much so that they get scared off to another agent, right? You still want to be their main advisor, but yes, for sure. I mean, it's all about setting people's expectations so that they know what they're getting into. And be that voice of reason when they're in the tough times. So
yeah,
I do want to hark down. Oh, go ahead, Mark. Sorry.
I was gonna say, do you think people like feed off your energy when you're, kind of letting your hair down a little bit and talking to folks about different things? And you're right. I mean, you have to deal with some challenging things. I think that, just being kind of cool and calm, a little goofy, I think that's a huge strength. I think, do you find that people kind of feed off that?
For sure. I mean, I think whether you realize it or not, people are constantly feeding off of your energy. They're constantly looking for your advice if they trust you. And if you've broken that trust, well, then you don't have a good working relationship anyway. But if they do trust you, they're going to even be reading your body language while you're at an inspection. So if something the inspector says is something that makes you go, uh-oh, and you don't even say anything about it, they still know. So it's one of those things that, yes, just having gone through, the steps and knowing how to fix things and if it's a big issue or if it's going to be a big issue allows you to guide your clients in the best way. And at the end of the day, it's one of those things. We're talking about inspections right now, but during an inspection, I always tell people too, it's like, if it's a crappy inspection, I'm not going to want to sell this house in 5 years when you move out. And I'm not going to let you buy the house, or I'm going to try to convince you not to buy the house. So yeah, I mean, I think it's just setting the tone and then just being a normal human and being honest. I guess I don't really know, you know?
No, it's something you just said stuck out to me because it's about body language. I have a friend who's recently got engaged and he asked me for any advice. I said, the only advice I'll give you is that when you're making wedding decisions, do it in person. That way, when your wife says, do you like red or blue? You'll see her face. She'll tell you what the right answer is. You just got to pay
That's true.
attention.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, right on. So one of the things I like talking to you because, like you said, you're kind of a goofy guy. But I think you're right. Like if you treat this like it's a horrible negative thing, or if you, like you say, you're reacting in the moment, people are going to reflect that because, like you said, if they trust you, you've established your expertise. They're going to say, well, if Adam's scared, I should be scared. And honestly, that can, like you said, influence everything. One of the best pieces of advice that I have ever gotten was the freedom of boundaries. The idea that having that framework to work off of allows you to be more creative inside the lines. How has scripting helped you remain malleable when you're dealing with different types of clients who are in different types of situations?
Yeah, I think it's just letting people know and giving them the freedom to do that. One of the best examples I use is, especially when you're working with family or close friends. A lot of us work with friends and family, and it's allowing them to say, "Hey, we're going to separate who you are as a friend or a brother-in-law or sister-in-law and who we are during this process. And there's going to be times that I'm going to see a side of you that I might have never seen before. And there's going to be times where you might see a side of me that you've never seen before. And that's okay. That's normal. You're going through a stressful situation, and I want to allow you to have that freedom to do that. Just know that no matter what, I'm going to protect your interest and not share that with the other side, and I'm going to have a very short-term memory when it comes to you freaking out, because it's a stressful process, and there are times you're going to be stressed, and it's okay to let those emotions out. Just know that I still love you. You're still my brother-in-law, you're still my sister-in-law, you're still my friend, and no matter what happens, that'll still be the case.
I think that's so important. I work with a lot of the younger agents here in the office sometimes, and they're like, well, my sphere is my friends and family, but I don't want to talk to them. I'm like, well, why not? They already like you. They already know you. You've, as proverbially, put money in that piggy bank. Like, let's go ahead and see how much we can get a little return on that investment because they've invested in you outside of this business. And I think that what you said is fantastic because good fences do make good neighbors. And like you said in the first answer, where you're talking about just being proactive and making sure people understand what's going to happen. That way you have those conversations. Hey, it's going to be moments where everyone's stressed. It's a stressful situation. That's like something I hadn't actually considered because that's really freeing for you and them because it's saying, hey, look, this is a different, you've never seen me do business. This is how I do business. And that's not how I drink beer on Saturdays. That's not how I go to the Atlanta United game. This is a different version of myself, but it's still a facet of you and it's still kind of an exploration of who you are.
That's right.
Right on. So a lot of agents in the office, outside the office, have systems in place for reaching potential clients, managing follow-up, staying top of mind. Was there a moment in your career that made the importance of conversational preparedness stand out, or was it just kind of something you brought to the table from the jump?
Well, I think naturally I did that for a long time. I remember one of my friends, his dad had gotten into real estate at the same time, and I got licensed when I was 23, and I had this big fear of not being old enough, not being mature enough, none of my friends being old enough, not being and buying homes yet. But looking back 10 years ago, 11 years ago, whenever that was, that's the perfect time because I helped everybody. I was the only agent that they knew.
Right.
And then I helped them now get their forever home and sell their starter home and all of that. Right. But really, it happens over time. You have to kind of develop your own thing. But I will say that I do ninja selling and I did a ninja installation. And that's really what kind of made it full circle for me is really to have the everything I'd kind of known or just naturally did put into a system for me, allowed it to, like, we just talked about, it's kind of freeing because it allows you to say, okay, yeah, you can do this, right? These are the guides to do it in, and this is how you do it systematically. And when I discovered that, I was no longer just shooting in the dark. I was saying, okay, well, I'll have my client calls on Tuesdays and I will check in with them once a week. And now the masterminds that we have at Keller Williams have allowed me to kind of say, oh, well, now I can take those client calls on Tuesday and on Monday deliver an email that's going to give, when I got that from Ryan Graham, and he's just, a super systematic person and agent and entrepreneur. So it's great to be able to like just be surrounded with people, and like this call, right? Like, what's the takeaway that you could take away from me? There's something out there that maybe I'm doing that you're not implementing, and just watching other agents, and not to call myself a successful agent, but watching other agents who have had success, and modeling after them is kind of the ticket, right? Because at the end of the day, you're not going to recreate the wheel. And
Right.
if you look at the best restaurants in Atlanta, that best restaurant in Atlanta existed in New York 10 years ago, right? So it's just modeling. It's simply just going out there, seeing what others are doing, and bringing it to your local market.
Yeah, I think like in our world, systems and processes, drive the bus, right? Because when you send us a contract, we have timelines and stuff. But like in the sales world, so many people don't understand the power of those kind of systems. Like, you bring your natural ability and then you put it in a system that helps you to be the best version of you, man, then you really got something. I think a lot of salespeople in general, man, lenders and agents, were very similar in the way that we approach the process. When you just kind of when you're wondering, why your results aren't really what you wish they would be, then the first thing you need to do is examine what your process is, right? So,
Mhm.
yeah, man, that's amazing. Obviously you are a successful agent.
we'll say it for you if you want
We
to say
love
it.
you. You're goofy, but you are successful. And so, it doesn't surprise me that you have a rock star system. I mean, I already knew that about you, but I'm so glad you shared that, because I think that is huge for not just agents in the office, but just, salespeople in general, man. If you have a system and you take your natural ability and put that into it, man, then you really got something.
Mhm.
How did you come across the ninja system? Because I've talked to Sarah Monster about it a little bit. What was really interesting to me and like learning more about it was that if you have a certain type of brain, it really accentuates, like you said, the stuff you're already doing, and it makes it feel like, oh, you're not spinning, you're just organizing in a different way. What did you try other systems first, or were there other paths, or was this kind of just, oh man, I found this thing that speaks to me and it really worked out?
Honestly, I was just looking for change. I was struggling in 2023. At the end of the year, I'd had probably my worst quarter ever in Q3 of 2023, where I probably only sold like maybe one home during that quarter. And I was sitting there looking at my business bank account being like, "Ugh, I'm gonna go broke." Like, like this is just a bad time. And I was looking for something to kind of reinvigorate my drive. And um Greg Kodesh had originally gone to Ninja and just raved about it. And then from there, Sarah immediately had signed up, and I knew my buddy John Efron had gone and he had done it. And then so it was one of those things I was like, okay, there's something to this. They all
Right.
came back, they felt better, they were implementing new systems, they were having different, I was still giving listing presentations at that time, and they were all giving listing consultations, which was something that kind of changed in my business too after Ninja. But really, it was just seeing them go, and I was like, okay, I need to do something, I need to change something. And then when I went there, it was like, oh, I don't have to change anything. I just have to implement this simple structure
Right.
and show up.
I
That's
think
all I
that's
had
a
to do.
lot of people's hesitancy when we talk about systems and things of that nature. Like, because not only is it, oh, I have to do something new, it's in their minds, it is an admission that they've been doing something wrong.
Hmm.
And I think that the ability to take the ego out of it and say, look, I'm not doing anything wrong. Let me just refine what I'm doing. It's I had a lunch with one of my old mentors in this industry a couple weeks ago, and he since 2022, over half of the mortgage licenses in this country have been surrendered.
Mhm.
And when you say, oh, things got hard, so I doubled down, I want you to recognize that that's not a natural reaction. That is something that sets you apart, because a lot of people go to those hard times and say, it's just not for me, Clive. I got to find something else. And you were able to say, no, I'm not going to. You look at the bank account, you felt a certain kind of way, and you did not use that to squash any movement forward. Use it to propel yourself. And so I think that is a differentiating factor too.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I call it fear.
Whatever works. Hey, look,
You know?
fear, greed, whatever gets you out the door. I'm not here to question motivations.
Yeah, I mean, I'm the sole provider of my household, so I'm like,
Yeah,
it's go time.
We could throw out a million sports references, but failure is a really good coach, man. I mean, really good, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think we could all talk about that forever. Yeah, absolutely.
Man, forever. I played football at Columbia University, the owners of the longest Division I losing streak in the history of college football. I can talk about it. I wasn't there for that part. That was in the 80s. But doing this every month, like talking to high producers and having these conversations, I want to be honest, it's been super beneficial for my business as well. Mark's been implementing, our sales team's been doing weekly scripting sessions for people who are not on the team, or people who are kind of in that place that you were in and saying, hey, I need something that needs to change. I just don't know what it is. How would you suggest finding the right scripting partner or even systems to get the most out of what they're doing today to help kind of maybe say turn their own personal corner?
Yeah, I mean, obviously outreach, right? To just finding friends in your market center or whatever, your brokerage. Everybody's got their friend, boyfriend, girlfriend, best friend, office bestie, whatever you call it. I think it's holding each other accountable. It's just getting out there and saying, hey, I want to get better at this. Can you help me with this? That other person doesn't really want to help you, but they will if you bug them enough. And then I think too, it's if you need something like that, create it in your office, because others probably need it too. And the thing is, if you just put it out there, you're gonna have some people that will be interested in it, and then it allows the platform for you to go in and better yourself too. So, I mean, I think really it's like just just do it, Just there's like that famous the CEO of Nike where he's like, art, people come up to me and they say this and that, and I say, just do it, right?
Yeah.
And I think it is just get out there and organize it. You don't have to pay for anything. It doesn't have to be expensive. It doesn't have to be this big grand thing, and it doesn't need to be the finished product from the first meeting, right? So if it's one person shows up, great. Maybe two people show up next time, but just get going and create the platform to host people and help people alongside you. Because it's with Ninja, it's they say competition is like one level, but collaboration is the highest level. And when you're at the highest level, like, you need collaboration. And I think it's thinking in that, if you're thinking with competition in mind, that means you have limitations set in your head. And if you're thinking from collaboration, that's expansiveness. That's the laws of attraction. That's all the things that you really need and in this industry to ultimately create the headspace and the mindset to keep moving. So
that's
it's
one of the
hard to
things I've
learn
loved.
when you're the biggest fish in the pond. When you're the biggest fish, it's hard to learn. But when you're like someone like you, when you associate yourself with other people around you that produce like you do, or even more than you do, then you can always gain something and give back. Like, I'm like a prime example. Like, I'm supposed to be like the sales leader or whatever, but I'll be sitting in there and Daniel will say something. And I'm like, how do I not know that? Like, after 21 years, I don't know that. Like, how's that possible? Right. And so, man, that's very well said, Adam. That's spot on.
It goes back to what we talked about earlier, and kind of removing the ego from it, and kind of saying, because a lot of it is like, oh, I don't need help, or no one would help me. And if you take away the ego and just say, look, we're all people. I hate going back to sports so much, but it's you go faster alone, but you go further together. Like it's only by working on with each other can you truly get some really remarkable things done. And I love the fact that when you were telling us about how you found Ninja, it was the tacit sign up by people who you already knew and respected. You already knew that these people will produce, and you watched things change for them and said, okay, I don't want to fear, whatever it was, the motivator it was, hey, I need to take it and give this a shot and make sure this works for me as well. That's fantastic. Last but not least, I'm going to respect your time here. We're in a time of great uncertainty. We see more and more buyer hesitancy in the marketplace. Whether the inspiration may be rates or the market, how do you manage to keep your buyers impulse through what can be a longer process on their decision to buy and overcome some of those self-imposed hurdles on the way to the closing table?
I mean, so whenever and this again is part of the Ninja installation training, is that we revert back to what the why is, right? So what is the main motivator in their whole reason of moving? Is it wealth? Is it being in a school district for their kids? Is it having more space? Is it, the motivators are ultimately what and why people buy homes. It's never, people aren't looking for a 3-bedroom 2-bath, because if they were, we wouldn't have any inventory, right? There's crappy 3 bedrooms and 2 baths. There's ones that get multiple offers, and the difference is there's something that's not necessarily a criteria that makes people drawn to a house, and typically it's the same for a lot of people. And getting that is just reverting back to why people are in the market or wanting to make a move in the first place. The same reason they pick up their phone and call you or I is the same reason to steer them, or it's the same thing to steer them back to when they're having those distractions and having those second thoughts. A lot of it too is communication. I think just talking with people and allowing them to gain clarity for themselves, because if you tell somebody something, great, but if it matters who says it,
Right.
if you allow them to get to where you are trying to guide them by themselves by asking the right questions, they are going to be much more confident than if you just tell them what to do.
You say communication, and what I'm hearing, what you're doing is really listening and being not just waiting for your turn to talk or sell or pitch or whatever. It is taking the information they're giving you, processing it quickly, and having the wherewithal to say, okay, I know how to be, one, experience, but two, also because you put these things in your own words, you feel comfortable saying them, because again, that's natural, because it's actually how you feel. It sounds so counterintuitive that you script until it's real, but as you're scripting, it's becoming more real and more actionable and more something that you don't even think about saying. I have the rate conversation now with people, and the current market, it's not hard for me, because again, like you said, we go back to why are we here? You're not in the market because rates are in the 6s. You're in the market because you're having twins. Like, let's focus on the light and the joy that are these children that require more home, and we'll deal with the monthly payment or the rate on the other side of it. I think that's fantastic.
I want to be respectful of your time, Adam, but one last question is, like, when you find people who maybe they're just not like super motivated in the beginning, and maybe they just need to get cooked in the oven a little bit more before they're really ready to, like they need to buy first and sell later, because you'll never sell their house because it's full of stuff, or all the normal things, right? What's one of your like secret weapon go-to, conversations or whatever to help them kind of remember that stuff? Do you throw stuff? Do you guys have like a specific conversation that you kind of like, well, the reason why you called me in the first place was blah, 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 or how do you kind of like get them excited about that kind of stuff again? Or how do you handle that?
Yeah, so usually when people are timid or they have a long timeline is because they're either confused, either about the process, how long time takes and how long things just in the from contract to close take or anything like that. So I find that it's good for those people to start at the end. And people who say, well, we're not really on a timeline, we're on a month to month, that's like nails on a chalkboard to a realtor, right? To most realtors. But what I always say is, I love that. I think that's great, because what I don't want you to do is settle for a house and feel like you're not 100% happy with it. Now, finding the 100% home is impossible. There will be some sort of, things that you will have to settle on, as far as you might not have everything in a home, but that's okay because no home is perfect. But ultimately, if you could wave a magic wand and be settled in a home and move in, when would that be? And usually people say, well, we're going on vacation this date. So I'd love to be in a home, let's say in 6 months. Okay, great. Well, in 6 months, that puts us in this market. Let's say that's August. Well, it takes about 30 days to close a house. So if you backtrack 1 month, that puts us in July. And that means we probably need to start our search at least a month, if not 2 or 3 before then, because of limited inventory. So really, I'm looking at a pre-approval around April to May at the latest. I think that's when you should really start talking with lenders and get pre-underwritten. But what if a house comes along in March that is the one? And they would say, well, we would make an offer on it. Basically, I would say, okay, great. But you're going to be backtracking at that point. You're going to be the buyer that's not ready to buy a house. And unless you go ahead and have those steps and talks and those conversations with a lender and get 100% approved, there's going to be a buyer out there that may take the perfect house. And then you're going to have this huge, FOMO of never finding the right one again.
Right.
And so if you're setting an open-ended timeline, go ahead and be prepared so that you can act quickly when the right one comes along, because you don't know when it's going to be.
Right.
And if the perfect house comes along and you're not ready because you set a false timeline that was just made up in your head because you didn't have a timeline, then you're just going to settle anyway, right? And the whole purpose of not having a timeline is to not settle, but you need to be prepared. And those things are different.
I love structurally what you just did, because at first you validated what they were doing. You were excited with them. And you said, well, here, just, and now you've got the buy-in. Once you've already agreed with them, like, okay, this person sees where I'm coming from. And then you're able to add your expertise behind it. Like, that was really well done, really well structured. I hope everyone gets a chance to watch this, pay attention to just how he did that. Like, it's not just pulling a rabbit out of a hat. It is literally thinking about how you're going to talk to someone. Everything is sales, and getting buy-in on ideas, the hardest sales you can do. And that was really beautifully done. So thank you for that, Adam. Ben, anything else?
No. Adam, thank you so much for your time, man. Really, really appreciate you big time. You're a good guy. I've known you for a long time. I just appreciate you saying yes, man. This is good stuff.
Fantastic.
Well, I think you guys are good guys too. And I appreciate you being next door. Yeah. And thanks so much for having me, and, thinking I am successful enough to be on here. So
love it.
Well, we appreciate you taking the time.
Awesome.